Are you there? Preeti, are you there?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I am here.
Okay.
Nobody
So,
has joined it, I think.
sorry.
Nobody has joined except RC.
Also, I think let us, because some of them might join a bit later. So, I think instead of wasting your time, we should go ahead with our topic, right?
Correct. Okay, sir.
So, as we discussed on Saturday, so we had completed the 412 MDE 412, which was the instructional design for the distance education, for classroom education, for training program, and so forth. So there were a lot of discussion on it. So basically, that was very important course which deals with the whole pedagogy strategy. Yes, and Aarti has also joined. Welcome, Aarti.
Good morning.
Morning. So we had our discussion completed on Saturday on MDE 412. So today we are also again moving to one very important course, which is Learner Support System and Services. So the nomenclature of the course itself is very clear, very explicit, that we will be discussing the various support systems that the learners do get at the university, at its regional center, and at the learner support centers. And but the basic focus of the discussion would be as to why the support system is required, what is the concept of the support system, and what are the various services which are provided. Along with it, there will be very lengthy discussion on the institutions, the design of learner support services, as well as the management of the learner support services, implementation of the support services, providing at the regional center or headquarter or the studies and learner support center, or which we also call the study center. And along with it, there will be emphasis on the institutional responsibility, roles, and so forth. So, in totality, we will be, again taking up a very important discussion on very important issue, which is the learner support services. And I think if we just take a recourse to the whole MADE program, which you might have done, at least cursory look at the entire structure of the program, then you will perhaps find that at the entire practice, at the center stage is our learner. So learner is always at the not only at the priority, but it is in the total focus. So that means that the entire structure of whether it is the philosophy of distance education, whether the theories of the distance education, whether there are learner support services, whatnot that goes into making the open and distance learning education. Everywhere, I think you will find that at the center, at the focus, at the prime is the learner. So that is how there is a one independent course, which is MDE 413, which is Learner Support Systems and Services. So it has 5 blocks, as there is a convention to have almost 4 to 5 blocks in each course, and then each block will have 4 to 5 units. Maybe some blocks had even 10 units. So, but the common or the acceptable size is almost 4 units. That would mean that in one particular course, which is worthy of 6 credits, as your program or the courses are. So then there will be at least 20 to 22 units. So this particular MDE 413 course is also having almost 20 units. So it will be quite an extensive study into the learner support services and the learner support system. So the very first block, I think we need not to discuss it anymore because we already know that there are programs, there are courses, there are blocks, there are units. So that is how it is structured. So maybe we discussed the structure also in the MDE 412. So here we come again to the block 1, which is learner support and introduction. So this is basically to discuss the learner supports, why learner support is required, what is the necessity of having learner support. So the system approach. So how does institution looks at it, whether it is say for example, if we look at the conventional institutions, their approach is quite different. Their approach is that the learner will come to classroom. The institution is supposed to provide a proper classroom, supposed to provide a proper campus, then the availability of the teacher, and then conduct of the various activities at the campus itself or at the in the classroom itself. But if you look at the distance education, open distance education, the whole focus changes. Here the focus is on the learner who is separated. I think this word we must keep in mind. The word was used separated, or the word instead of separation, we also use the word distance. That means the learner is primarily the open and distance education characteristic. One of the major characteristics is that there is a separation between the learner and the teacher, or the tutor and the taught. There is a distance between the two. So that is a basic characteristics of the distance learning or distance learner. So keeping that in mind, I think we have to design the whole support system. We have to have a very different approach. We must have a different strategy to deal with the distance learner by providing the essential and the supplemental or complementary supports to the learner. I'm talking about the basic supports as well as some complementary or supplementary supports which are required maybe at a certain point of time if a learner is coming with his or her own family issue. For example, they might be saying that okay, we are a single family, a single parent family. So how to manage them in distance education? How to manage my education? There, it becomes the responsibility of the institution to look into that aspect also, and as far as is possible, try to accommodate the candidate who might be single parent. And in conventional education, most of us know that there are students who are mostly unmarried. A few of them might be married, but largely they are unmarried. They are of a certain age group. They are having certain parameters which they have fulfilled to enter into this particular program. Then we know that their requirements are homogeneous, almost similar. So they do not the institution do not go into their family background, do not go into their previous education, and simply prepare itself for dealing with the learners in the classroom situation where all the learners are seemingly you know of the same kind of level, same kind of a kind of uniformed class is there. So the characteristics there do not go into their individual's background, instead go into their group sort of background. For example, if there is a MTech program, then it is known that all of them must have come through the BTech completed program. They must have completed this particular program, and then there is a scope, there is a need to build the further higher program. Sorry. But if you look at the distance learners, some of them are coming to classroom, some coming to distance education after a gap of 10 years. That is not the case with the conventional education. where education continues. And if there is a small break, then it has to be justified as to why there was a break. But there is no such issue with the distance education. Anytime one can come and join and continue with the education. So that is one characteristic, and I mean there are several such characteristics which need to be looked into while planning the learner support services, or rather, I should say that that requires an institution to make the learner support system effective and workable. So the very first block, which is a learner support, that is an introduction, and it deals with the learner support, the system approach. As I said, how does a system looks at the learners? So the system looks at the learner from different perspective as in comparison to the conventional learner or the face-to-face learner. Similarly, then learner support, basic issues. What are the basic issues? Why it is needed? And what are the advantages of it, and what are the disadvantages of not having the support system? Because perhaps it would be, if I remind you that for the very first time when you received the study material or you got the link to download the study material, you might have found it very, I mean, quite different from the conventional study material where you have textbooks and straight away they are dealing with the state topics. But here it is different. It is prepared by the institution itself, and then there is a specific methodology to operate the study material, and then we are talking about it. It is self-contained, it is self-sufficient, it is self-guiding, it is having self-evaluation, it is having inbuilt teacher and what not. I mean, whole lot of strategy goes into making the self-learning material. So in order to operate that, because maybe sometimes you find it quite intriguing that why it is as you know, you must have done that, and previously you have studied this at particular chapter, at particular unit, at particular course. So such cross references are not part of the text. That means which we prescribe for the conventional mode. Then unit 3 is very important, that is support services, institutional arrangements and models. Institutional arrangements and model. You see, the institutions prepare themselves for the support system. They create an infrastructure. They create manpower. They dedicate manpower, and at the same time they follow certain models upon which the arrangements are made. That will be discussed in the unit 3 of MDE 413 in the block 1. Then we move little ahead, and then you come to the unit 4, which is developing self-directed uh, earner. This is a quite typical issue. Self-directed learner. How do we develop self-directed learner? That means our study material should be so designed that it encourages the learner. It helps the learner to work in monotony, to come out of the monotony, come out of the isolation, and work for the completion of the program as well as to complete his or her education and become part of the productive manpower of the nation. So that is the developing self-directed learning. Then we come to block 2, which is learner support, development of skills. So what do we do with the learner supports? We do whole lot of activities, and some of them are focused on one aspect, some of them are focused on certain other aspects. So one very important aspect of the learner support system in the open and distance education is to develop the skills. What are skills? There are various skills. So like cognitive skills. Cognitive skills, as all of you know that it is a very important skill. What we observe and then what we gather from it. That is the cognitive skill. How do we look at certain thing, certain piece of information, and what do we gather from it? So that goes into the cognitive skill. Cognitive skill is very important because it is the basis of understanding. It is the basis of creating knowledge for oneself. So it is the kind of perspective and with which we look at certain object, certain information, certain piece of knowledge, or anything in the experiential situation, and then what we gather out of it is the result of the cognitive skill. Then we come to the study skills. This is a very important skill because if we go to the classroom situation, we know that the teacher will teach, the students will listen to the teacher and then come home and study and then pass the examination. In between, if the student, some students or one student is not doing well, then there is every possibility that the teacher will come to know about it very clearly. He or she might be having sort of a small classroom test, and then if one is not able to perform, that would mean that the teacher will take note of it, and then the teacher will make some arrangement there, so that the learner who is not, the student who is not able to comprehend, can find out some solution to it and work on that, and then help the learners to, the student to move ahead with the learning. But unfortunately, this is not the case with the distance learner. I'm sorry. Because in distance learning, the learner is not having a day-to-day contact with the teacher. So if that is not happening, that means the learner will have to be motivated, persuaded, and maybe approached adopting certain specific and certain generalized strategies to come out of the isolation, break the monotony, and then become an active learner. So, how to study? How to what is the study skill? How to basic question is how to study, because the learner might be coming turning up after 10 years maybe. So if the learner is coming after 10, 15 years, then you see obviously the learner will not be in a position to meet the study patterns which the contemporary young generation will be having. Some of them, the young generation prefers like digitized resources, e-resources, more than the conventional pattern of study material, which is the print. But if there is a person who is around 40, 50, or 60, then what to do? So there you have to, the institution has to make an arrangement that the learner is imparted certain specific skills to study. So this we will discuss in detail when we come to this particular unit of the block 2 of the MDE 413 course. Then if we move ahead, then we come to a topic which is reading and writing skill. So you must have all studied, different skills. Those are like reading, writing, survey, recap, then presentation, then criticism. There's a lot of skills which are part of the study pattern. So there are even the certain skills which are there with the reading, Then there it is to memorize, it is to recall, it is to present, so these there are sets of skills which are there with the reading, and there are sets of skills which are there for the writing. So how you should write, what should be the focus of your writing, what should be the beginning, what should be the middle, what should be the ending, and what goes into a good writing. I mean, what makes a writing good. So those skills are there, like it should be clear, it should be lucid, it should be progressing, it should be linked, and so forth. So then unit 4 will be problem solving skills. This is very important unit, because all of us know that there are a lot of problems with the learning. There are problems with the learning in the classroom situation, but because you are every day coming in touch, in contact with the teacher, so as and when you meet the teacher, you put a query. So there is no issue that just gets solved. But in distance education, this is not the case. In distance education, the learner is not having contact, I mean, face-to-face contact with the teacher. Might be having through different media, which is here, for example, we are today talking. So if there is an issue, you can ask. But that is not the case that you can every day approach and ask the questions. So there might be problem at certain point of time. Then what to do? You see how to come out of it. You are stuck at a point. Then how to come out of it? It's a big challenge. So this is then there are skills which prescribes how to come out of the problems, how to deal with the problems. So you will study. For example, if you keep a positive attitude, definitely you will find some solution. If you give study material, maybe more than one reading, maybe certain solutions are there. But at the same time, if there is an issue, then you can approach the institution, whether it is academic or administrative, and then there will be a solution to it. So it is not that the distance learner doesn't have approaching point. Definitely he or she has every right and approaching point, but there are a lot of skills which can be dealt with the learner's own place, space, and knowledge. So that is the what we will discuss in the blog too. Welcome, Krishna.
Good morning.
Good morning, morning. So we are discussing Krishna MDE 413 structure. We have not taken up the units separately. Just we were discussing the general, having general overview of it. Yeah. So if we move a little further, then we come to the block 3, which is counseling and tutoring services. I think you will be a little surprised that counseling is much different from the teaching. It is not teaching, it is basically to counsel. Counsel means having an empathetic attitude towards the learner. So if so that because counseling here is majorly focused at dealing with or providing empathetic attitude or dealing with the academic matters of the learner. So that is counseling. But at certain point of time, information also becomes part of counseling. The administrative help can also become part of the counseling. If maybe I tell you that yes, your determined examinations are having at this particular time, you should fill up the determined examination form and submit the fee online. Though it is not purely an academic, it is not purely an academic matter, but it is there to help you. So basically, counseling is to empathize, to to sort of understand and give positive and receptive kind of response to the learner's problem. We will come to it that what are the qualities of good counselor: one who listens, one who is receptive, one who is prompt, one who is resourceful, and so forth. So we will come to it. Then tutoring. See, this is very typical. One is counseling, another is tutoring. So tutoring is to, to tuition somebody. So what happens in the tuition? Your subject matter is discussed. So the tutor discusses it, and then a tutor is also an academic who helps in the removing the ambiguities, removing the doubts in your academic pursuits. So counseling is broader term which has different roles for the institution to play, but tutoring is more specific to transaction dealing with the subject matter or the contents of the course. So sometimes we in general parlance we say why he is being tutored. So that means one is being coached. You know the word coaching. So one is being particularly instructed about such particular area. So in distance education, when we specifically address our effort towards the learner, to deal with the learner or focused on the academic matters, then it becomes the tutoring. So then tutoring through correspondence. This is very typical, very important. So I think boards, homeworks, theory you have already studied, already read, which is the guided interaction. So what is the guided learning? What is it? So guided learning is basically learning through two-way communication. But if we talk about the open and distance education, then how do we interact with the learner? So here is that uh, the guided learning. So guided learning is through assignments. How do we do it? We do it through the assignments. And assignments are received because the learner mm, is sometimes you can submit the assignments through email, through online mode, or through postal mode also. So what the learner receives back is the assignments with proper comments by the tutor, by the uh, counselor, or by the teacher who has been assigned to evaluate the assignments and write the tutor comments. So there's a lot of interaction through this particular medium, through the correspondence between the learner and the teacher. So this service, because it is a kind of service, the learner is provided motivation through the comments. So tutoring through correspondence means that deals with the comments that one receives on the assignments. Because all of us know that these days, specifically, if somebody is writing a letter to the institution and simply putting up an academic matter, then it is very difficult to write a very long letter to the learner. Because learner might have several questions in one letter. If those are administrative, they are definitely addressed and then the necessary replies given to the learner. But if these are dealing with the subject or the content or the course matter, then there are assignments with which one receives the tutor comments and through which one interacts. So it's a kind of correspondence. Then there are several other interactions which takes place through the in the open distance learning, and those are not very important, minor interactions like there is a peer group meeting, there are workshops, there are seminars, there are PCPs and short-term contact programs. For our B.Ed program, there's practice teaching and so forth. Several other occasions which differs from program to program, from course to course. So those are also there to interact with the learner. So last block is block 5, which is management of learner support. So this is the block which deals with the how those support system support is managed for the learner. So first of all, there is a conceptual discussion. I may like to refer to you that if you look at the structure of the courses, then the very first block usually deals with the conceptual framework of that particular topic. So here also, if you look at the very first block, we discussed the learner support and introduction. What the supports are? How does the in-distance learner look at it? What are his or her aspirations and so forth? So then there is a small inroading look, deeper insight into the learner support. There are several issues. Then we come to the unit 3, the institutional arrangements and the models, and then creating self-directed learner. Similarly, if we come to block 5, because block 5 is dealing with institutional arrangement. So the very first block is the learner's expectation in distance education. This is a moot question. I think you will understand this and you will appreciate that this is a very moot question. That means a very basic one. At least then why the learner support system is required? So that means there are certain expectations. If we have certain expectations from the conventional system, that means we expect that there should be good classroom, it should be neat and clean, there should be water arrangement, there should be other amenities, restrooms, there should be proper management of our records. The teacher must come in time, and then teacher must teach the relevant topics, relevant subject matter. And then we expect that the examination should be conducted at the scheduled time. I think some of you will be a little puzzled to know that in some states, the term examinations of a particular sessions are delayed for 2 to 3 years. No examination is held, and students just keep on waiting for examinations to be held. But in open and distance education, this cannot be the case. So the institution has to, the learner expects that my examinations after completing the study period, after submitting the term examination form and so forth, the examination should be held in time so that one is able to complete the program. Similarly, if we look at the next unit, which is unit 2 of block 5, that is the management of support services. That means how do we manage? That means what is our planning, what is the budget for it, who will be monitoring it, and so forth. So then next is monitoring learning progress. Monitoring the support services is one thing, but monitoring learners' progress. So this is again a very important role for the institution to fulfill or to discharge, that it should create a kind of support system which monitors the learner's progress. That means certain monitoring of the assignment is done after the assignments have been evaluated. A sample of the assignments is again scrutinized by the academics of the teaching fraternity, and then some some results are derived out of it, and those are shared with the teachers, shared with the institution. So it is very important that those reasons should be investigated, which goes into learners' understated performance, or on the contrary, if the learners are doing very good, then what good steps the institution has taken, what are those positive points? They should also be properly identified and circulated in the system so that others are also encouraged to adopt those kinds of strategies. Last unit is the library and information services to distance learners. So this is very important. I think our distance learners are aware that at a learner support center we provide not very extensive but basic library where almost all the course books are available, all the study materials are available, some audio video material is also available, and more recently the learner support centers have been equipped to digitally to provide the digital access to the universities the remote reference services. So all which is managed by the library and information division of the university of respective universities, whatever their arrangements are. Students are provided with the reference books. They are provided with the study material. Of course, for consultation and reading in the library itself. And in certain cases, the learners are also provided a facility by getting library card, and upon that they are allowed to get certain books issued for certain specific time. So all sorts of arrangements are there. So these are part of management of learner support. So I would like to know, is the concept clear with this of the learners support services? Am I audible? Uh,
Yes, sir.
okay. So I think we have an overview of the learner support services.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So then, if it is clear, then we will go to the block one and we will discuss some part of it today. Learner support and introduction. So we will go into the unit one, and as we know that learner support is what? How do we define learner support? So before we go into the supports, we have to see what the distance learner requires. What do we provide to the distance learners? What do we
Study
provide?
material,
Yeah, we provide study material, we provide interactivity, we offer,
counseling sessions,
we offer the academic program, then the institution manages the learner support services, and finally there is the evaluation. These are the overall activities which the institution does. Very first thing is it provides the course material. Typically, you see, I think you have noted, you must definitely noted that the regular institutions do not provide study material. What do they provide?
slides.
Sorry,
They do provide
They will provide notes
slides,
and all.
they provide texts.
notes,
Text.
notes, slides
They do not.
in PDF format.
They do not provide text. They provide. They suggest. They
मोबाइल
have.
नंबर लिखा है ना, काउंट करो किसका है?
Sorry.
So they do suggest books,
Exactly.
reference books,
They prescribe syllabus, right?
right? And the reference books they do suggest for.
In that syllabus, there is a mention of certain textbooks. So you go to market and purchase them, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, but that is not the case with the open and distance learning. So, whichever university or institution is, they will definitely prepare their own study material, self-learning material, self-instructional material, and then they will provide it to the learner. Now, if you look into this aspect, it is a very intelligent approach because it is not. It is if you have text, then to learn from the text, the text is not self-sufficient or it is not self-contained. It is containing the information, but it is not self-contained, self-sufficient, or self-guiding. The text is simply presentation of information, certain pieces of information, certain knowledge. It will be there
So
in
I
the book.
want to ask one question.
Yeah.
So, during colleges, some of the students they do prefer to study through guides. If you know, guides are there.
Yes.
So, what are those?
Guides are somewhat prepared on the lines of the self-instructional material, but let me just tell you, when we prepare self-instructional material or self-learning material for open and distance learning, then the material exhaustively it is prepared in a style that it exhaustively deals with all the concepts uh, and it
Requirement of the learner.
provides the self guidance, but the self guidance is not with the guides. Those are guides. Then definitely they are called guides, but they don't have the guidance in the sense that they are abridged form of the information that is there in the textbook. So those are just focused on the examination pattern, questions, and then there will be answers. So it will not be possible that way to learn from the. So guides are basically it is a rote learning. It is a rote learning.
Yeah.
It is not logical learning. It is not intelligent learning because it
But in
doesn't.
India, But in India, you can. It is a true fact actually. Ki, most of the college students at the last moment of their examination, they use to approach guides, take help of guides, and they just do finish their. Can say ki without even clearing their concepts, ki hai kya, what they are learning,
Yes, yes,
and
yes.
for
एक
the
वर्ड
sake
आपने
of the
सुना होगा, सेल्फ क्रिटिकल और क्रिटिकल थिंकिंग,
right.
सुना है ना और पढ़ा भी होगा.
Yes, sir.
So developing critical thinking is the objective of the real education. True.
Yes, sir.
Until and unless you develop critical thinking in a person, I don't think that one has been imparted proper education. So critical
Definitely.
thinking comes from the study which enables you to put query, to question. So this sense of putting questions, I'll come to your answer just now.
Please.
That part which the self-learning material has in the open and distance education, the element of self-query, self-questioning, and self-direction in classroom situation that comes through discussion with the teacher. Okay, in
Yes,
classroom
sir.
in classroom situation, why there is a teacher? Suggested texts are there, so why don't the students are asked to study the texts and appear in the exam? No, The teacher facilitates that development of the critical thinking amongst the pupils. So that is the very basic idea of the typical style of the self-learning material or SLM, and the importance of teacher in the class. So the role which teachers play in the classroom situation, that role is played by the study material in the open and distance learning itself. It has a knowledge, it has the information, and at the same time it has the inbuilt teacher who guides, who interacts, who develop the critical thinking. So it is so designed, so technically or methodologically prepared, that you always find the teacher there. So if we move a little ahead, then you see what is the open and learning system? What is the open and distance learning system? How do we define it as a system? If we look at the ODL system, then it has certain components. And above all, we have the distance learner. Then we have the self-learning material, which might be print based, or now largely this has been converted into digitized material. So you are free to choose the mode, whether SLM in print form or in the digitized form or the e form. Then, more importantly, we have media and technology as a facilitator for interaction. And then we have a delivery system. That means, yes, is there a question? And then we have evaluation and the learner support systems. These are the various components. Those are there in the open and distance education. Means we have the teacher, we have the learner, we have the material, then we also have the media and technology, and we have a delivery system, then we have the evaluation system and the learner support mechanism or the support services, which we call. Those are available at the learner support centers, LSCs, or the study centers. So what do we provide in the course? The course material is, as you are already operating in course material, then if you talk about the media and technology, you see we have the extensive use of the information and communication technologies. The very first use is the part of the study material is basically in the audio video components. So those are built into the study material. So we also have computer-based teaching, CBT. So that means certain there are online classes and which are facilitated by the internet or by the computer. So then we have certain other components like radio counseling, like teleconferencing sessions for the counseling, then TV sessions, television sessions, video sessions, and then we have animations. There are certain digitized materials which have lot of animations, lot of innovations is there in these programs. Then we also have the system which we utilize for delivery of academic programs, and for lastly the learner support services, LSS. These are very important components, and all this activity, all this process culminates in the evaluation. So evaluation, I think I have already told you that largely there are two types of evaluation. One is midterm evaluation, another one is the terminal evaluation. So midterm evaluation, perhaps you will recall the word I use, is the formative evaluation. So formative evaluation is the period when you are pursuing the program and you can modify your approach. So and the termed examination is the examination which is held, which is known as a summative evaluation. That means it sums up your entire reading, entire study, and then it is you are certified, you are provided degree, diploma, or certificate. Once you satisfactorily go through the summative evaluation, of course, the formative evaluation also forms part of the grade or part of the scale which is awarded. But the major focus is like if the assignments are given 30% weightage, then the term and examination is given 70% weightage. So one is part of the formative process, another one is the summative evaluation. Now there is a small discussion as to why the support system, learner support system, is called the subsystem of the open and distance learning. I feel it is not very typical. It is very simple that there is an open and distance learning system that is a main ODL system. That is the main system that we are discussing in our MADE program. But when we come to discuss a small component of it, it definitely becomes a subsystem. So it is the support systems, learner support systems or services are subsystems. It is not the only system that the ODL operates. It has a lot of other, we didn't discuss. If it come to the support system, we didn't discuss in the support system the instructional design. We didn't discuss in the theories and principles or the foundations of distance learning. So those are separate issues which are there with the open distance learning. But in a way, instructional design is also subsystem. Learner support systems is also another subsystem. So in this particular block, we are discussing this particular subsystem which is there in the open and distance learning. So if you look at the components of learning support system, then the primary support is the study material. With study material, we have audio video. With the audio video, we have interaction with the teacher, that is through counseling. So then we have assignments, and then we also have the library support. At the same time, there are certain other supports like you see when some student who is not student of ODL, he or she approaches the university, maybe logs into the gnu.ac.in or maybe any other open and distance learning institute, then he or she can register and receives the complete package of information, irrespective of the status that he or she is yet not the student of the university. So that means there is pre-entry awareness support. Then there is a post-entry. That means after once you have enrolled, you didn't like the combination of courses that you chose. So what to do? But in that situation also you can refer your query to the course coordinators of different programs at the headquarters, and also you can meet the regional directors. You can meet the counselor and then explain your problem that yes, this particular course I have chosen wrongly, it is not within my capabilities, so I would like to change it. Most likely the university now is so flexible. I mean, open and distance learning is so flexible that it may be in a position to offer you a choice that yes, okay, within the given fees you can transfer, you can choose another subject in place of one particular subject or the course which is not which is difficult for you, or maybe it didn't properly relate to what you wanted to study. So this is the post entry or post admission phase. Then there is a post entry or post course awareness program. Means We know that there are changes in the educational policy, there are changes in the contents. So these are part of the post course awareness program. So I think it is very important that any academic institution which is practicing open and distance learning has very clear arrangement for the pre-admission coaching, post-admission support, and the post-course, post-admission uh, specific support for the relating to the courses. So if we talk about the academic support services, because there is academic support, there is administrative support, there is personalized support. So if we talk about the academic support system, then that essentially deals with the material which has been supplied, or it may have certain components which deals with the assignments. So I think we have Ria with us also, right? Okay, Ria, are you there?
Hello, sir. Hello, sir. Good afternoon.
Okay, okay. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So it's nice to see you also.
Yes, sir.
So we have different types of supports. We have academic support that deals with the course contents. That might deal with the whole lot of other issues. Say, for example, the difficulty level of the contents, the language of the contents, maybe inability to attend all the counseling sessions, and certain areas which are not very clear to the learner, and so forth. So academic matters can be there as a discussed with the system. Then there are tutorials and counseling. So those are also there for uh, developing the grasping power of the learner. So more importantly is the counseling support. How do we look at the counseling support? So primarily, you see, you will appreciate that counseling is quite different to the teaching, because teaching is full time, and we know that in teaching there is a teacher who is coming to class every day, and not only one teacher, maybe three, four classes are there. So that means you are having interaction with three, four teachers. That doesn't happen with the distance counselor. So the counselor simply discusses the general ideas of the course, and it also appreciates the learner's ideas. That means a learner is expected to have gone through the contents and maybe having certain queries, and then the discussion part is basically the counseling. So it goes into the counseling. So sometimes you will find counseling may not be covering every bit of the study material. So it is expected that the learner will study it and the counselor will remove the doubts and discusses the general idea, the general plan, or sometimes specific issues, definitely. But it's not that the counselor will not discuss if the learner has a query, have a detailed query. Of course, that will be discussed, and there will be solution to the learner's doubts, learner's query. Then comes the administrative support, as I say, academic support and the administrative support. What is administrative support? A lot of issues are related to administrative support. That means sometimes the internet is not working, so that is the issue. How to approach the institution? Say, for example, if the university's website is down for quite a long time, and there is a schedule for submission of terminal examination form and so forth, what to do? So there is a ECP program, but you are not able to attend it, and maybe many students are not in a position to attend the extended contact program that we have for our PG diploma in higher education, and also for B.Ed program, Bachelor of Education, and for certain other programs we have PCPs. but you are not able to attend it for certain personal reason or maybe some other reason. So how to resolve that? So you will approach the institution, maybe the regional center and so forth, and then that will be addressed. So this is called the administrative support. There are a lot of issues, timely non-reflection of awards, non-issue of a grade card in time, non-receipt of information, and whole lot of issues are there. Then finally, as I said, the evaluation support system services, those are, as I told you, those are in two forms. One is the formative. Formative is the assessment of assignments. Uh, and at the same time, I think we use the word the correspondence. How do we establish the correspondence with the learner? That is through feedback or tutor comments. So we will come to tutor comments. There are various types of tutor comments. Some are positive comments, some are hollow comments, some are null comments, some are positive comments, and so forth. So those will be discussed in there. Then we have the summative evaluation, that is based on terminal examination. Another facet has been added to the evaluation of the open distance learning, which is the on-demand examination. So for certain program now there are online examinations, and along with online examination, the institutions are gearing up to provide on-demand education. So that on-demand evaluation. So that would mean that if a group of learner or maybe an individual learner is willing to have exam for or as and when he or she wants, of course, after completion of the stipulated academic duration, then that exam is conducted and necessary support is provided. So some open and distance learning institutes are doing it, but not very extensively, not for all the programs, but for certain programs which have been built on the strong basis of technology. So those are available. So then we have media and technology course material learning supports part of the LSS. Then delivery of the learner support services. So those are delivered through the some services are provided directly from the headquarters, some services are provided by the regional center, and some services are provided by the learner support center. So we have three tier. That is IGNO model, but most of the distance learning institutions are operating in the similar fashion. They have the regional, the headquarters, that is means where the main university is located. Then there are regional centers in the different parts of the jurisdiction of the respective universities. And then there are in field there are certain centers which are there for the support of the learner. So there are few models I think we discussed. There are support models like John Bath's view of human consideration. So as I already said that he talks about the behavioral and cognitivist approach. So similarly, they also took the B.F. Skinner's approach, which is the feedback and encouragement. So that means in the support mechanism, there is a consideration for learners' responses, stimulus to various activities of the university. And if those are appreciated, then definitely the university will move forward and learners will be happy. Similarly, I came to you, as I just mentioned to you just now, it is Holmberg's views on learner support services. So he talks about the didactic learning. So it is guided didactic learning. So this is basically a learning which is two-way interaction. So means the tutor will receive the queries of the learners and then give the solutions to it. So that is the Homeworks model, World Homeworks model. Then there is a David Stewart's model that is on the community on concern. a continuity on concern. This is a David Stewart's model deals with the dropouts. So how to remove, how to take care of the dropouts. So that means you have to have a very strong database. If for a particular readmission cycle the student does not register, then there should be proper a letter or maybe a proper communication with the learner as to why he or she has not re-registered for the particular re-registration session. So I may like to clear to you that just for MA program, you pay the fee. Sometimes you pay the fee one time for both the years. Sometimes it is the year wise. So if you have paid the fee year wise, then you will get the information from the university that it is time to re-register for the second year. The same is with the bachelor's degree program. So you register for first year, then university issues the schedule, and in that duration you have to re-register for the second year and for the third year. But if some students do not register, then the university must send them a repeated communication or contact them that as to why they are not able to re-register, then provide necessary group guidance. Then maybe some peer group can be formed so that group interacts amongst the member of the group and pass on the information, what are the activities that are being going on in the system, and whether one of the group is missing certain part of information and so forth. So all this is there. Then a very important discussion is what goes into making the learner support services. What is that that institution focuses on. The foremost and the biggest factor which the institutions consider is the learner's background. If the learners are quite aware, they are having access to all the information, all the communication technologies, then it becomes quite easier. But most of our learners are coming from the rural background. They are sparse. They are staying in far-flung areas of the country where internet connectivity is not very effective. In that kind of situation, there are certain issues to occur. So those issues must be addressed, or those issues must be appreciated. Those are background issues. Maybe some learner coming after quite a few years gap, that's another issue. As I mentioned, maybe some learner is having family priority, then that is another issue. Somebody might be not financially very strong. He might be he might not be able to re-register for a particular semester or year. That's another issue. So all these issues are there for the consideration of the institution. Then there are course-related requirements. Course-related requirements are that certain learners are not able to decide as to which course is going to be useful for them. So the Stewart's model actually talks about all these issues. So if we take into Stewart's model, it takes into the personal or the background issues of the learner and then try to address those issues. So I mean, there's a mechanism to address these issues. So that mechanism is the support system, which is devised by the institutes or institutions. So that is the unit 1. So we move little ahead now, and that is you will find quite an interesting reading. But all these are basically those which we usually talk, which we usually expect, and whatever you expect from the institution, you put it as learners' expectations from the distance learning institutions. So there's no harm in it. You can put any number of demands. May not be there in the text in the self-learning material, but if you feel that these should be part of it, That is your experiential learning, and if you can relate or integrate that into the basic learning, that would be your addition. That would be your learning basically. That would be a result of the self, the critical learning. Second one is learner support some basic issues. So what are the basic issues? You see, so basic issues are already, I think we have discussed what are the basic issues. Some basic issues of the open and distance learning subsystem, that is learning support system, is that institution create, that it should create an environment for conducive distance learning. This is a very ambitious statement, that the institution should create an environment for conducive distance learning. That would mean that the institution should not give priority to its own preferences, to its own maybe constraints or its own advantages, but it should create an environment where conducive means uh, uh, worthy education, distance learning can take place. And then there should be an environment where it is possible to learn through the distance learning method. What is that distance learning method? That is learning through the study material. And we say study material is self-contained, self-guiding, self-sufficient, having an inbuilt teacher, having evaluative mechanism. So the institution must do that as part of the subsystem in the overall open distance learning. So that means the institution must develop a very good or very refined study material which deals with the learners' aspirations and the prescriptive or the prescribed learning methods. If we say our study material is self-sufficient, then it should be self-sufficient. If we say it is self-guiding, then it should be able to guide. So it is not that we simply copy the text and present it in the form of self-learning material. That is not there. So we have to keep it in mind that it is not so. It is designed in a way as the learner's expectations are there. Then that means the expectations of a distance learner. Then it should be able to motivate the learner, and it should allow the learner to work and continue the education at his or her own place and pace. So all these things goes into the. Then what are the requirements? What are the needs for preparing the learner support services? So we all know that there are certain requirements of the learner. Learners want to know about the course, different courses. Then the learners will also would like to continue with the program or the course. So that is sustaining learners' motivation. This is very important. This is very important. So it is very important that we sustain the learners' motivation. How can we sustain the learners' motivation? We can only sustain if we have two-way or a born Homburg's model. That is the guided didactic learning. Means we are able to establish correspondence with the learner. We are able to appreciate the learner's problems. We are able to listen to learner, and so forth. So if that does not happen, then how can we retain the learner? How can we motivate the learner? We cannot do it. So we have to have a system which is responsive, which is receptive, which is effective, and which is under promise to deliver the contents as they are promised. So Then, which are the various stages when the support is required? So as already discussed, one is the very important phase, that is the pre-entry. So pre-entry, there are a lot of queries. Whether the university is recognized. The very first question that about the ODL is asked whether the university is recognized. So you have to answer to that. The university must be able to answer to that. It should have a system which should be there to answer that query. Then next question that comes from the student is which are the courses that are on offer. So I'm using the word course very consciously. Normally, people will use the word course, but in distance education, it is the program. So we should not confuse with the program with the course. So if a general public asks which are the courses, then obviously that is asking about the program. So we should not try to rectify the general learner, one who is going to be the learner or general members of the general public that, okay, you don't know about the system. So that is not there. What we should do, we should explain, yes, sir, we have this particular course which we call program, and this is that. Then they ask, what will be the fee? Then they will ask how it will be taught. Very, very important question. How this will be taught? So you have to explain that you have to study, and then you have to. You will have some interaction with the teacher. There will be counseling and support. So there will be 100,000 questions about the institution, about the sports system. Then during the course, as I already told you, that once a learner is enrolled, then there can be academic issues, there can be administrative issues, there can be any number of issues, and all those issues have to be looked into. So then this is another third phase. Once you have student enrolled and the student and the distance learner has completed his or her program, then what to do? You see, now these days, open and distance learning institutions are creating alumni, and so those are very important platforms because alumni association can help the learners who are recently pass outs to get better jobs, so in better placement. Then the institution must also try to address the issues of employment. If there is a state or if there is a particular office which is not giving due consideration to the university's degrees or diplomas, then they should refer to the UGC circulation and then they should clarify. Then the university must also, after completion of the degree diploma, should issue their grade cards, should issue their degrees at the earliest possible. And above all, the universities, the institutions which are providing distance education should also equally hold like job melas, job fairs, placement drives, etc. So this is happening in some universities. Like IGNOU is doing quite often, it is holding the employment drives, job melas. So if that can happen, I think this is a very important after the course completion support service. So maybe then what are the basis for building the support services? I think the major consideration for building the support services is the learners' characteristics. What type of learners are there? What are their aspirations? What are their backgrounds? What is their demographic characteristics? Where do they belong? Uh, so we all know the learners are autonomous, they are independent, they are adult, they are with prior learning, they are having, they are having families, they are having children, they are having certain other social obligations to look into. So all this goes into planning of support services to the learners. Then I think there are certain other considerations. If you have learner support center, what should be there at the learner support center? The learner support center, I think I told you that it has this small referral service. That means there is a small library over there. Along with the small library, it should also have classrooms for counseling sessions where there may be like OHP, LCD projector, and so forth to have presentation or to have the innovation or to have the smart teaching. So recently it is being implemented, and a lot of rooms which are used for counseling sessions and the region center or the learning support centers are smart classrooms. They have the facilities of OHP, LCD, and other devices are available. Similarly, for our programs, for the programs which the university offers in the area of science, technology, environmental science, geography, uh, and in many other courses which have the lab component, then there should be proper labs. May not be built by the university itself, but may be hired for the purpose of lab sessions. So this must be there. So it is particularly for the Bachelor of Science program, Master of Science programs, Master of Environmental Studies, and various other health-related programs. There is need for the labs. Then there should be, definitely as we look at the current study patterns, there must be good internet connectivity at the learner support centers. So the university must ensure. I mean, this is one part, one facility that goes into the learner support system. Then there are various others, but there should be such environment where the learner feels like learning. There should be proper facilities for water, drinking water, and also the restrooms, refreshing rooms, etc. All those things are required. Above all, there must be good counselors at the centers to which the one learner is attached. So all this is there, and this forms parts of the institutional supports. So institutions or institution, a respective institution must be able to put put an academic calendar. So what the academic calendar does, it gives the specific dates on which date what activities will be required to be performed by the learner or by the system. So it should have the academic calendar, very important because that rests a lot of queries of the learners. It addresses a lot of queries just by itself. If the learner knows when the term examinations are going to happen, then you don't have to explain it in the classroom, in the PCP, or in the interactive sessions, or in the counseling session time and again. Simply put it on the academic calendar and supply it to the learners. So that rests a lot of queries to the solution. Then it should tell exactly what are the counseling schedule, what are the examination schedule, what are the audio-video sessions, when the examination forms are to be filled up, and a whole lot of queries which are there automatically with the learners. Those are addressed. Sometimes there are certain courses which also require like work centers. Work centers are those centers where the learners will go as part of their academic pursuits and work for a few days, carry out the practicals, and maybe interact with the faculty of that particular institute, which has been designated as work center of the distance learning institute, and learn the hands-on by hands-on practice learn certain skills. So those are actually on the. Then we have learning on demand also. This aspect has been there with the online education. So at a certain point of time when there are live sessions, it is not possible for the learners to join those. So there should be recording of those sessions, and so that it can be given for utilization of the learners. So then there has to be inter-institutional coordination and collaboration. Perhaps you know the word Inter-University Consortium, IUCs. UGC has floated an idea of the IUC, Inter-University Consortium. So what happens that Inter-University Consortium facilitates the sharing of facilities that are available with one institutions. So for open and distance learning institutions also, this has been prescribed that they form a consortium, and through the consortium they share their physical infrastructure and academic resources. That means if one institute has very good library, very good, then it should be shared. If the other institute has good laboratory, then the students of other open and distance learning institutions must be allowed. On many occasions, the UGC has emphasizes that the infrastructure that is available with the conventional universities must also be shared by the with the distance education institutions. So today it is not the scenario that if some, for example, Delhi University, JNU, Jamia Millia, or any other Ambedkar University, or Punjab University, or universities that are Madras University, Chennai, or any other university, any other institute which is having very good infrastructure that that can be shared by open and distance learning system, and the students of the open and learning system will have an opportunity to work or to utilize that excellent infrastructure. So it is there. Sometimes we come to very specific issues where uh, the specific assistance is required. Say, for example, we have the candidates which are PWDs, people with disabilities. So those learners are must also be provided a sort of infrastructure or provided such accommodation whereby they can move. Say, for example, if there is a wheelchair upon which a learner is coming to study, then there should be proper ramps where one can go on his or her own and can enter into the classroom, study room where the counseling sessions are going, or when the examinations are to be taken. Then such learners who are with disabilities, they should not be put into discomfort. So you must have the buildings, the facilities that the open and distance learning institutions have, though it is equally mandatory for the face-to-face also, but face-to-face mode is already working on such for a very long time. But in distance learners case also, there should be proper ramps, there should be proper restrooms, there should be proper attendance of the such learners. They should be accommodated for certain issues. Say, for example, as far as possible, their examination should be held on the ground floor so that they don't have to be struggling to reach the higher floors. Or if that they have to go, there's no other alternate, then there should be proper ramps to reach to that particular, or maybe certain manpower should be arranged by the respective open and distance learning institutes to to make the learners journey comfortable and enable one to learn or to appear in the exam. So it is a very important facet. We are already talking about the humanistic approach, John Barth's model, which is the humanistic approach. So open and distance learning has the largest scope for humanistic approach. So if we do that, definitely we are going to do a lot of good to the distance education. So this way, there are a lot of mechanisms, a lot of approaches which can be incorporated into making open distance learning worthwhile, and also, as we discussed just now, conducive environment will definitely be built. So all this is there. Then we come to a small next unit, which is dealing with the another aspect of the open distance learning, and this is the institutional arrangements. How do institutions arrange the open and distance learning services? So, first of all, I think we have to see that open and distance learning has come a long way. From correspondence education, it has come to distance education. From distance education, it has moved to open and distance education. So all this is there. So the major change came in 1970s, when the real concept of distance education was rooted, which eventually became open and distance education concept. So we know that in earlier period it was largely correspondence education, postal education, home study, self-study, and so forth. There were a lot of nomenclatures which have been used. You know. So this was the first generation period, which was the correspondence education. Then 1970 onwards, we have the second type of education with us, which is the open and distance education. So here the word distance education was conceptually implemented in the method of education, and eventually it became more open, more flexible, more people centric, and so that more and more people can enter into open distance learning. So that was the second phase. And third phase, 2000 or 1999 onwards, very important change, very important, what we can say, dimensional, paradigmatic change in the education. That is the online education. So today we have a lot of institutions which are offering online education. The advantages are that the education is very, it is the informed, quality, quick, but at the same time, it is not possible for implement the online education all through the system, or exclusively making the system based on online education. So partly, some institutions are doing it. They're offering their programs through online mode only. But still, if you look at the overall open and distance education, so still we have the conventional approach. That means we provide the self-learning material through mail, through post. Then the learners are attached to study center, learner support center. Then there are counseling sessions that are happening, and have the learners will have some component of face-to-face interaction and so forth. But all this is not there in the online education, though there are certain advantages of online education. Then there are certain models. So there, the very important model, very first model was the correspondence education and open distance education, and then the online education. So finally, very important issue, which is, I think, which we can discuss it, in terms of the institutional arrangement. I think some of you are aware there are certain universities which are operating in the face-to-face mode. They are having a full face-to-face mode of education, but they are also having Center for Correspondence Education, Center for Correspondence Courses, CCCs, Center for Correspondence Education, CCE. Then certain institutions or certain universities are having Directorate of Correspondence Education. And for example, University of Delhi is having School of Open Learning, SOL. So, what is all this? But at the same time, there are Bhimrao Ambedkar Open University, Hyderabad, which is exclusively for the open distance learning education. Then there are Yashwantrao Chavan, Maharashtra State Open University at Nashik, that is exclusively for open distance learning education. Then there is Indira Gandhi National Open University, which is IGNOU. All these are different models of. So there are single mode universities. There are dual mode universities, which are providing the open and distance learning institutions. So the single mode university means the academic institute which is providing the courses exclusively in one single mode. But if it is adopting dual mode, that means it is operating through conventional mode as well as uh, through the open and distance learning mode. So that is another type of institute. So there are two types of institutions. One is single mode, and another one is the dual mode. So we have seen that the institutions or the universities which are offering courses or the programs, and then we also have the centralized. There are certain universities which have the Directorate of Correspondence Education. So those Directorate of Correspondence Educations do not have the field stations or the field regions. They just have their directorates situated or located at the institutions itself. So those are actually centralized model. Then there are decentralized models. So this model works with the open universities. So decentralized model is working with the open universities. So these will have headquarter, then the regional center, and then the study centers. So there are two types. As I mentioned to you that there are single mode universities, there are dual mode universities, there are centralized models, and there are decentralized models. Centralized models are those which are the distance education centers or institute which is working as part of the conventional university. But at the same time, there are open universities which are exclusively working and having regional network, having the regional centers, and under those regional centers, they are having certain study centers or learning support centers. They're having the laboratory network, they're having the workplaces, they're having the library information services, they're having the reference services, and so forth. So that way, it is a distinct system. So finally, we come to a point where we will discuss how to develop a self-directed learner. So this is maybe we will discuss it tomorrow. So we will take a small recap. We will discuss the self-directed learner. Uh, what should be going into the system so that we have the self-directed learner. I use the word critical thinking. So critical thinking that goes into making self-directed learners. So until and unless you have developed self-evaluation, self-analyzation, self-critique, you don't become self-critique, then you cannot develop yourself uh, into the learning which is which is expected from a distance learner, or rather, you become self-directed learner. So self-directed learners means all those things which we talked about the study material, what goes into study material. It has the contents, it has the structural base, it has the objectives defined, it has the themes, then sub themes, then it has the practices, exercises, then it has the model answers, then it has the references, and so forth. So this is one structure that is provided in the self-learning material. But along with it, we say it is self-contained, it is self-guiding, it is self-sufficient, it is promoting the individualized learning, it is developing critical thinking, and above all, it is self-evaluating. So this is there in the study material. But at the same time, the system, also provides independent learning. That means it doesn't require you to come to the study center daily. It will hold the academic counseling sessions, and then you come and join those. Maybe not physically, like here we are, using a different platform where we are all in one group and talking to each other. So there is a guided learning, there is a group learning, peer learning, and so forth. So all these things goes into making open learning conducive for the optimal outcomes. And then we have also studied more homeworks model, which is the guided didactic learning, which promotes the self-directed learning. And also, we have discussed the role of technology and self-directed learning methodology. So, if there is a two-way interactive, like we have teleconferencing sessions, which are meant for the learners at the headquarter or at the student, there will be experts. Then there will be mediators. Then there will be learners. So the experts will deliberate on particular subject, and for a particular period of time, say for example, if it is 1 hour session, then for 15 minutes they will just interact with one another, and the doubts or the queries of the learners will be addressed. So that is using the technology to promote the self-learning. So there it is not required that the learner comes to the place of counselings, but can join the sessions and can also have the queries addressed or answers to his or her own problems. So all this goes into developing a self-directed learning. Perhaps we will more detailed discussion we'll have tomorrow, and when we will delineate with the self-directed learner's characteristics and qualities in more details. With this, I will stop here, and I would want that our learners now interact for maybe 5 to 10 minutes. You are welcome, Riya, Aarti, Krishna. Any you would like to give your feedback to the what our discussion was today?
So it was all easy.
Nice, nice. This topic is very easy, and this is the area where uh, lot of humanistic approach is required. Lot of
Yes,
uh,
sir.
lot of behavior.
Actually, yesterday I was going through this code number 414. It was about management of distance learning.
Hmm.
So it is a part of that. You told about three-tier system of IGNU.
Yeah.
It is a part. Yeah, it was all there
uh,
in that 414 code too.
Very true. Basically, it is an area which deals with the learners' behavior and learners'
Because today the topic is all about learner support system, and that makes the part of that management of distance learning.
exactly. I
Or
think that is the
yeah,
crux.
it is one of the parts. Yeah,
Very importantly, because we are talking about issues, but those issues forms part of the institutional arrangements.
yeah. Because as a part of management, it was planning, organizing, directing. So it
Exactly.
becomes a part of.
Exactly, exactly. All this goes into this is the this these are the ingredients.
Yeah. But it is in elaborative way, can say. You're explaining it in detail.
No, actually, why I am able to do it because incidentally I happen to work in the regional network for about a decade.
Okay, sir.
So we had different experiences during this period. So I was able to relate a lot of my personal experiences with the what should go into it. I will share with you a few examples. I was working as a deputy director at a regional center Jammu.
Okay, sir.
Then we had a letter received from a lady who was from Jammu city and married at the border, Poonch area. She wrote a letter, a very pathetic letter. Sir, look at my luck. I was born in Jammu, married at this particular place, but I am happy with my family. But my urge for learning is not getting fulfilled. So how can I learn? I cannot I cannot travel 100 kilometers and come to the region center and then take all these instructions. And so I am finding myself, in a very isolated situation, and I am enclosing a small envelope with a fixed ticket. Please write as to how I can continue my education. So it was very personalized letter. So what we sent her a complimentary copy of the prospectus with the permission of the authorities. Then all the performers, all the things, and then we returned her self stamped envelope also that the institution will do that. And eventually she became our learner and very actively, she pursued the course. Within 3 years, she graduated, and when there was convocation, she specifically made it to the convocation along with her family, two children, husband. That was a moment that was something that we were able to do. So so lot of then we made a point that people coming from a particular border area should be attended right in the morning session itself. We will not make them to wait for the afternoon session because they reach early in the morning, but then they had to travel back because of certain security issues. So we never hold them back for the afternoon session. We did request the local students or the local people that you please wait for 1 hour or so. Let us attend all these people who are coming from these areas. So I'm just giving an example. There are so many hundreds and thousands such aspects of the learners. So we have to consider these aspects and then build a mechanism, and then perhaps only then we can say that yes, we are actually serving the distance learners through open and distance learning mode.
Yes, sir.
Uh, so all this can be part of your, if you have such experience, if you have certain other aspects which are not included in the, because of course the unit writer has a certain limitations. He or she can go to one's own limits or abilities, but and the field is vast and there can be any number of experiences, any number of aspects which can be included in the support mechanism. So I would request that if you have certain such issue with you, with your friends, with or within your view site, within your reach, then you please add it to that. Yes, this can be another area which should be included in the student support mechanism, and the institution must consider this. So, with this, I will conclude the session, and Krishna, are you there? Okay, so he might not able to respond. Yeah, Ria, are you there?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
So, any query, any issue you would like? I mean, point you would like to add or discuss?
So, as of now, I don't have any questions, but I did not attend yesterday's class.
No, yesterday we didn't have class. We just had on Saturday.
No, on Saturday.
Okay, okay, okay.
It was another class of Sir R.K. Sharma.
That was in the afternoon, na?
Yeah, no, it was yesterday. It was at 11 to 1.
Yeah, that
Day
was
before
another class.
yesterday.
That was
Yeah.
another one. So with this, I think I'll take leave of you and would bid very good day for you, all to all of you. And
Yes, sir.
we will meet tomorrow and we will discuss few more things. We will tomorrow discuss this particular self-directed learners, some discussion on it. And along with it, I feel we will also discuss uh, the learner support. I think this will be quite interesting. Development of skills. How do the distance learning makes arrangements for developing certain skills in the distance learner. So thank you very much to be with us in this particular session. Have a good day and meet tomorrow.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.